Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here with us at Unveiled. My name is Jamie Sanderson Reed from the Communications and Outreach Advisory Council, and we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to enabling equitable access through bold conversations, tangible action, and a community committed to transforming systems. By reimagining access, opportunity, and sponsorship, we're building a world where access to opportunities isn't reserved for a lucky few. Our fireside chats are safe, bold spaces where we have real conversations with change makers who are challenging the status quo, leading with purpose, and showing what's possible. As you listen today, we invite you to join the movement, engage with us through comments here in the chat, on our LinkedIn post, and our monthly newsletter, which is available on our website, unveiledbridgingthegap.org/blog. Become a member of our growing network at any one of our 4 membership tiers and support our mission with a donation to ensure that we can continue offering programming and events like these that meet the needs of our community. Speaking of which, we have 2 exciting upcoming events to highlight. Applications are open for Press Pause. And this isn't just another leadership program. It's a 6-month guided experience created for professionals who know there's more to their story. It's a space to step away from autopilot, reflect on what truly matters, and then re-enter your journey with clarity, confidence, and purpose. You can apply today at unveiledbridgingthegap.org/press pause. We also have an in-person gathering of leaders across industries on October 15th in New York, where we will celebrate 3 years of success, activating equitable access to opportunities and sharing how we are amplifying our impact to meet the needs of our communities. And we will reveal the name of our first book, which promises to be the playbook to navigate workplaces for success. Get your ticket today before they're gone at unveiledbridgingthegap.org/book. Now, without further ado, I'm so excited to hand over this fireside chat. Our host today is Brandy Walton. She just wrapped up her cohort with Unveiled. And also Naima is our featured speaker today, also a past member of last year's cohort with Unveiled, which I had the opportunity to work with Naima. I was also a part of that cohort. So I am extremely excited about this conversation. So let me hand over to Brandy. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. I'm so excited to get started. Hello, Naima.
Hi, Brandy.
Oh, this is going to be a great chat. And, I don't want to waste any time. Let's just jump right in. And
Okay.
I know we talked about this a little bit, but I think it's really important because when you think about the pharmaceutical industry and marketing, I know growing up, I knew no one in these industries. So I'd like to understand what initially attracted you to pharmaceutical industry and marketing.
Sure. So, I think I was similar to you.
Mhm.
My journey, I think, started with me actually being interested in healthcare. So, all my life, I was going to be a doctor. I was pre-med.
Mhm.
My father was a doctor, and actually, he practiced in Annapolis, which was fairly affluent. But his mission was to actually take care of underserved, lower income women. So he gave these women the best care as much as he would give someone, treating someone in a private practice. So that was my path. Went to college, biology pre-med. And then I was going to go to a post-bac program. And just something came over me and I just knew I didn't want to be a physician.
Yeah.
And graduated, I was like, I got to get a job. So got a job. And it was just a job at a marketing company. I had no business marketing experience at all, but it was consumer packaged good. But I was like, oh, I kind of like marketing. I like the business aspect. And I didn't have experience. And so knowing what I wanted to do, I wanted to stay in healthcare. And now I realized that I like marketing. I ended up getting a job at a marketing medical communications company agency. So that's how I started in the industry. And that was really my introduction. I didn't know anything about pharma at all. And
Wow.
so worked in medical communications. That was my first job. And then realized that I really liked this industry and then just got different experiences at different agencies. And that's really how I learned. And then ultimately went over to the manufacturer side. But that was like my start. It was happenstance. I didn't plan it at all. I wish I'd known at the time, but now I'm here.
Well, see, I love that. And it's important to understand people's journeys. And I think we chatted about that similarly, that background in science, but then finding your path to
Hmm.
what you ultimately love. And now it's often challenging when you're finding that path, like how to truly navigate the landscape. So you see a lot of, you've got to network and build your communication skills and all these different aspects to really get to that journey. So, share with us a little bit your experiences on the importance of navigating that when it comes to networking, communication skills. What are your go to, and how has that been pivotal in your career?
Been pretty critical because I didn't necessarily start out knowing that I wanted to be in the industry. And typically, especially when I first joined, you had career paths, right? You
Yeah.
usually typically, especially in marketing, you came in through sales and you did different rotations and you moved your way up. Because I came from a non-traditional way, I came from the agency side. So part of it was like
Mhm.
building relationships, even with my clients. I was like, ultimately, I said, I want to be where you are. I want to be on the
Yeah.
other side. And so that was like the first step in terms of how I was able to navigate. So just starting to meet people, start going to different functions and forums. I started to actually learn myself. So whether there were courses or just different societies, HBA, Unveiled, other organizations that really were targeted towards the industry, I just was intentional about engaging in those organizations to learn and just learn from every role that I had, building that network, building the relationships, and then also knowing where you want to go. Because again, because there's different career paths, I was in the commercial marketing space. There's certain skills, competencies, things I
Mhm.
needed to do. And so really understanding that and then meeting with the right people, whether it was having informationals, all of those things really help kind of shift and guide and help you think a little bit around like what's your next step or where should I develop myself. And so those were the things that were pretty important as I've been navigating.
And you said one thing that really stuck with me. And sometimes if you think about, some people don't know what they don't know. But the question you often ask is, or I heard you say was, I want to do what you're doing. And then being quiet. How was that when you asked that question? Did that help you develop maybe the next steps of what you didn't know because you came from a non-traditional background?
It did, because it's all also opening up your blind spots. Because
Hmm.
it again, as we know through Unveiled and these programs, it's not just your day job and the work that you do. It's like the other things that you need to understand and getting those competencies. And you need to have your experience, whether it's like building out a strategy, or you
Yeah.
need to get this experience, in people leadership, or you need to get this experience, working with the sales team and field sales. So all of those different experiences, it requires you to understand and listen because really that's the only way you're going to grow. And of course, you can create your own path, but at
Hmm.
least having someone and they've already done it, you don't have to be the same, but at least understanding some of the experiences that they've gone through so that you can take advantage of that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And then talking about change, I mean, I'm not gonna, my moisturizer won't tell you how long I've been in the industry, but I know from the time we've started to where we are now, the evolution of our industry has truly, truly changed and continues to change very rapidly. Focusing more on your career in pharmaceutical marketing, talk to me about that change in your industry on pharmaceutical marketing in particular, and then things you've done to adapt to that.
Sure, sure. I can talk. So I kind of share again, my pathway was non-traditional, and my last role on the agency side was actually working at a digital marketing company. And that was really kind of my, I would say, entree into working in large pharma and big pharma. But that goes to like what's changed in the pharmaceutical
Yeah.
industry. So when I started and joined, it was all about reach and frequency, having these huge Salesforce armies. And
Yeah.
I came in, so my role was, again, it was called at the time non-personal promotion. So essentially, it was like, how do you market and engage with customers outside of the sales representative? And this was a very nascent, so like it was almost you had to convince everyone, like, what do you mean? Physicians
Hmm.
want to learn from online or the website and not my rep. And it's not about and true, you still need your sales representatives, you still need the relationships, you still need the engagement, but there's other ways that you need to engage. So this is a long time ago, but it was just that uphill battle. And so that was kind of my role, was a center of excellence to work with some of the larger brand teams to help build a strategy, build a
Hmm.
non-personal promotion, And that ended up being kind of my career for quite some time, was working in digital and multi-channel and what's now omni-channel.
Yeah.
But back then, and knowing that it's still progressed, and how do you learn? There's new channels, there's new technology, there's AI now. So you just have to be able to be agile in learning and apply it, but just recognizing that it's not just like the industry, but our customers have also changed. You have to be reflective of how you market to like what our customers are experiencing too.
Yeah, and you just said the hot button AI. And
Yes.
I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of organizations now, it was that process that if I don't do it, I'm going to get left behind. But if do I really have a strategy? How have you brought the AI to the forefront in your role, and help teams develop strategies around that?
So a lot of this experience, there's still a lot out there, right? There's different
Yeah.
AI tools that you can use. So part of it's just getting familiar and understanding what are the different tools and how you can use them. So part of how we and I use AI is a lot of it's like just doing pure research, right? So getting peer reviewed publications, understanding just like and validating, because before you have the hallucinations and understanding the data and what's out there. So that's one aspect. The other is just around AI, and what we use internally is even leveraging it for our CRM. So now starting to build into AI. And if you're familiar with that, the customer relationship management,
Mhm.
so you're starting to learn and understand and being leveraging AI to start to build the knowledge. So then as you're thinking about what types of campaigns or tactics or outreach, using AI to help with that. A lot of our solutions now have AI embedded in there so that we can be much more targeted and focused and efficient when we're reaching out to customers. But I mean, we use AI through things like content development, right? So
Yeah,
I mean, just
everything.
planning, anything that you can think of, creating like planning tools, documents, emails. How do you write things in certain tones for audience? Any metrics? It's really embedded in all aspects of the work that I do, but also just our organization.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I'm going to pivot here a little bit
Hmm.
because something else you mentioned, and I know sometimes, how we grow up and our experiences do help shape our future selves. And you mentioned about your father as a healthcare physician, was really passionate about serving in underserved communities. And I
Hmm.
know you've done some fantastic work, and I want everyone to hear a little bit more about the Harvard connection and how your capstone project really focused on health equity in Harvard. So share some of that insight with us and tell us about that.
Yeah. So as you share, so a lot of my anchoring and the work that I do, whether it's internal, external, is all around addressing disparities in health equity. And I do that. I volunteer professionally as well as personally. But when it comes to cancer, I think a lot of people have been impacted by cancer, but for me in particular, I had family members. And so it's just very important to me to be able to address that. And so when we had to think about our project, it literally could be anything. And we need to take a step back around what that Harvard program is. So the Harvard program, the Harvard Global Healthcare Leaders Program, is really a program, it's an executive education program, but it's really targeted towards anyone that's part of the healthcare ecosystem with that lens for global healthcare and really transforming what's broken in healthcare. And
Mm,
so everyone that is part of the program has really that same mission and is very like-minded. The leaders, the facilitators of the program, the faculty, everyone is really with the same mission around how do we use our unique position within the healthcare ecosystem to drive change. And so your capstone was really, it could be anything. Some people had startups, but
mm,
mine was specifically on how do you address inequities when it comes to cancer, and in particular, colorectal cancer. And for me, it leveraged a lot of my strengths being a marketer. So doing the research, understanding the data to really actually document what are the disparities, in particular when it came to oncology, and in particular for patients like my father and others. The fact is that they have worse outcomes, there's higher incidence, higher mortality, and there's things that you could do to intervene. And part of it, and I was unfortunate with my company, that they not only supported me and able to participate in the program,
mm.
but also to use some of the solutions and services. So the company I worked with was a data insights company, so I was able to use some of the data to demonstrate the fact that looking at certain patient populations, some are actually coming and showing up at oncologists at a later stage. And
Mm.
so my hypothesis was that there are some barriers in that journey for certain populations. And one of the ways that I proposed was doing kind of a patient journey mapping, but understanding what are the barriers between, what we should be doing when we should be getting screened per guidelines and what's actually happening in reality and why is that not happening. And so building out kind of the plan to have kind of a patient journey, working with different stakeholders to truly understand and hear from their voice what it is that the challenges or barriers are. And then ultimately my solution is to build out an intervention where the biggest opportunity to address that. So how can we get this patient population to be seen, to be screened, to be treated, to do all the things from a guideline perspective so that they're not showing up at the oncologist at this later stage of cancer when they could have been addressed at an earlier point in time. And so that was the basis of my capstone. And then, again, it's like the idea is that you put out the vision, but then the expectations you'll continue to build and create this. So that is still what I'm working on, even though I'm done with the program. It's then doing the work. Yeah, I've made some connections. I have someone that can help build the application because my proposal to build this patient navigation app. That's culturally sensitive and relative to the community that's seeking to serve. So that in itself, so not only do you get the knowledge, the experience, the community, but also then just kind of the tools. So then how do you want to transform and drive healthcare?
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing this. And it made me think of a couple of things. Number one, it's fantastic. Not only you got the growth for yourself from an executive development piece, but having the support from your organization to really to see the importance of that and the impact. What would you give or recommend, like specific actions that people can really take to influence and drive, change with whether it's a service or a product that's in their organization, but just to ensure that they have accessibility and that benefits all populations? What are some of the one or two things they should really look for and try to do?
Yeah. So I think part of it is just even wherever you sit or you stand, whether it's, if you're in marketing, is, how you're communicating, is the content literate? Is it reaching the population that you're able to serve? You as someone there can make the recommendation. Even if you're not in charge, it can be an observation. So you can just speak up. So that's like the first one, is if you see that there are areas where you can contribute and suggest and make changes, that's one area. Whether you're in R&D and you're looking at the clinical trial design, and are you looking at the sites? And so just making the recommendations and observations, anyone can do that. Now, whether you get the influence and the buy-in to make the change, there's still work to be done, but that as a threshold, you can really just state what you believe to be true, and then have the, I guess, courage to state that. That's a lot of times you feel like you don't have the ability to share that. And I've been able to do that, just because you just see that there's so much out there and not everyone's thinking the same way that you are. So it's like, well, have you considered this, or have you considered it, getting input from this community, or who are the stakeholders or KOLs that we're identifying? There's this other organization. Have you considered this organization possibly? So you have the ability to make those recommendations, and depending upon where you sit, you can drive it or you can work with someone. It's really up to you what you want to do. And you just take that opportunity.
I love that. And the two things that stood out. Number one is you got to have the courage and you got to act. So
Yes.
even if you're acting scared, just go with courage. It really, really does matter up to you. Now, as I know, we want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions, but I always have to give that kind of one thing for that person to define for me. So I'm going to give you a question and I want you to kind of elaborate and define it. So the statement is, your title is not who you are. So first, elaborate on what that concept means to you. And then more importantly, how do people find purpose and meaning in their jobs or careers that they have?
Yes. Okay. No, so when I say your title is not you, I mean, I think a prime example, right? So I'm in product marketing. I'm a product marketer. I took the opportunity to take the Harvard program. It wasn't a marketing program. It was a leadership and healthcare transformation. So that's an example of, yes, I'm a product marketer, but that's not all who I am and all that I can do. And the other piece is that I also volunteer at the American Cancer Society and their advocacy network. And so working with legislators. So again, I want to drive change in healthcare. I want to drive change in cancer. even though I'm a marketer by my day job, that's not who I am. And if I want to be able to make those changes, then I can do that myself. And so that is really kind of my mantra and how I operate. And I've always done that, even from the point when I had my very first job in marketing. I was an administrative assistant, didn't know anything about marketing, but I said, hey, I'd like to, I want to learn more about marketing. And I was, lucky that I had a manager that was willing to give me some marketing work. So not just doing just administrative work. So again, right. So I was hired to answer phones. But again, I just said, this is what I want to do. And so I guess I did that. I didn't know that consciously, but I think I've done that through every role. If I see something that I want to do, whether it's my job description or not, I'll just raise my hand or talk to someone, or, hey, can I learn from you? And just do it. And so I think you don't have to be put in a box just because of your title. That's kind of how I see things.
I love it. And then what I heard, a theme that goes up is you show up. You will show up, and you're not afraid to ask.
Yeah.
What did my grandmother used to say? Closed mouths don't get fed.
Don't get fed. Exactly.
If you don't, you have to have, again, that word courage that we've talked about in a couple of the different instances. The courage to ask, the courage to be curious about things that you want to do and try to move forward. I know there's probably going to be a ton of questions, and I'll ask you one more, and then I'll start to look to Jamie for any questions to come in. I think the last one is really important, and it's, how can others leverage the positions that they do have, like where you sit today, to drive positive change in the world? And it doesn't have to be in corporations, but just to drive change in the world. What would be your recommendation for people?
I would say, just what is it that you want? What is it that you want to focus? What is your mission? What are your values? And then lean into that. And then it just naturally unfolds, because you'll be able to make those changes or suggestions or participate, because it's something that you're just driving. So it's really self-reflection, kind of what you want and what do you want to see? Because everyone has a vision of what they would like the world to be and what they want to see. But so you have that vision, so then you can figure it out yourself. Because I didn't have a road book. I just would say, oh, this is what I want to do, or this is interesting, I feel like this is tied to what I want to do. And then I would just go and ask or figure it out or meet. And it's really internal first, and then you can drive it.
Yeah, that's a great one. So here's one question that I got via text. It says, thank you for everything. What are some of the resources that you have used throughout your journey to really guide some of your decisions? And what I think they mean by that, are you a big reader, or is it mentoring? What are some of the resources that you've used?
Yes. Mentorship is one. Your network is two. And I read a lot. I do read a lot of leadership development, or more just self-inspiration. Or I also read about other leaders and a lot of autobiographies, and just try to get some of their, always a little tidbit or a little tweak, something that they've done from a leadership perspective. So a lot of it is just observation externally, but also just having the like-minded people as well, because they will also give you support, recommendations, and they'll also feed you as well.
That's a great one. Okay, here's the next question. How have you stayed motivated in times of challenge? And I totally, as
Yes.
the industry evolves, geopolitical, but how have you stayed motivated throughout all that you do and through your career?
I think so. I'm grounded in my faith, right? So I always believe there's a purpose and there's a reason for everything. So even when things are challenging or tough, sometimes you get through it and then you look back and you're like, I see, that's why that happened, right? So there's that. Very grounded in faith. It's just having that positive thinking and I know that's cliche, but just knowing that there's always going to be a valley, but you're going to get through it. And then there's going to be a better opportunity. This is always temporary when it's challenging, even though you may not see it. And a lot of times when these challenging things happen, even while you're going through it, you realize, well, this is why this happened. You may not realize or be thankful for it when you're going through it, but then you just realize that.
Awesome. That is a great one. The last question that I saw here too, I think this is a, uh-oh, I'm getting a little feedback. This was around the program. I think the Harvard capstone program is fantastic. What are some steps you can do to engage your employer to support these types of programs?
So part of it is just recognizing that these types of programs, depending on your business and industry, you always have to tie it to the business. I mean, it's personal
Yeah.
development for you, but tie it to the business. So for me, for this example, because I'm in healthcare and we are focused on transformation, digital transformation, I really packaged it into by developing me, I'm aligned to the mission of our organization, and this is only going to be helpful. So part of it is that you do need to speak the language, like how is this going to benefit the business when you're trying to get the buy-in for these types of programs. Um, but also, depending upon your resourcing, sometimes you may want to do this on your own. So sometimes you may have to invest in yourself. And that's the other piece too. So there have been times when I didn't necessarily get my company to fund it. And I did it on my own because I wanted to, again, do it for myself. So I've been blessed to have both. But there have been times when, if my company either A, they didn't have the budget and I just made that decision to self-fund it.
And I love how that last piece, because I think it's really critically important. While you are not always tied to the organization, you're always tied to yourself. So
Right.
in finding ways to invest in yourself is phenomenal. And I think now with the internet and so many resources
Yes.
available,
Yes.
there is definitely a wealth and great resources that are low
Mhm.
to no cost now
Exactly.
available.
Absolutely. And a lot of the universities, a lot of programs, a lot of things that are just online on YouTube, literally you can take advantage of and develop yourself. But it's nice to have those types of programs, but you can certainly do things on your own as well without a cost too.
Yes, exactly. So this question, it's kind of open one, but we've
Okay.
chatted about a lot of things, a lot of things. What question have I not asked you that you think would be impactful for everyone to know and understand about your journey, what you're passionate about, and what's gotten you here today?
Um, I think one is just that, yes, I've been able to make an impact, but I will say that a lot of it has been more intentional around the planning of what I can do, what I can't do. And why I say that is I shared earlier, I'm a mom of four. I don't know if I shared that, but I'm a mom of four. My kids are now young adults. So again, it's like, what can you do? You have to have the space, the planning for it. And so a lot of so I could do small things when I had young kids. And now I can do more because my kids are older and more self-sufficient. But don't feel pressure to do everything and don't compare yourself to others, because sometimes you may look, and I'll say am I where I wanted to be? But I knew at the time I had four children, I need to focus on my family, still do well professionally, but then I still want to advance and excel and make an impact. And some of the work that I'm seeing that I'm doing, that happened when my children were older. So sometimes, like, you have young kids, I don't know how much extra time, which is easier said than done, to do those things. It's just the time constraints too.
Exactly. And I think that goes to define your success. You
Yes.
get to define it, and that comes along with the timing.
Yeah.
Jamie, I see your hand.
Thank you. I have a question, kind of
Mhm.
going off of what you said there, Naima. So, because in your life, everyone has, sometimes we think of it as hills and valleys or just different priorities at different times, whether it's career-wise or with personal matters. So I'm wondering, how did the reflection from the Unveiled program, like the thinking about what you want to do for the future, how did that impact what you're thinking about in terms of your current journey?
There was one of those sessions that said, "What is your last pit stop?" And I still have that. So that kind of motivates me now, because, okay, when I'm done, am I done? And will I feel
Mhm.
fulfilled and satisfied? So that actually was pretty, I actually still have that as a slide. Like, am I still working toward my last pit stop is?
Mm.
Because it just made me think, because, like, you're always like, I want to do this, I want to do that, but why? what is it that if you were to look back at your career and you're done, what's your last thing that you want to do? And so that has, I think, been kind of the guiding thing. Like, where's where's my last pit stop? And are these things that I'm doing, or wherever I decide to put my energy or role or focus, is it going to get me to my last pit stop? Because that's kind of where I am in my career. I'm not like at the pit stop yet, but I need to be.
You can see the hill. You can
I
see
can
the pit
see
stop.
it's getting there. And so I want to be able to look back and feel that I, made it, or at least made a significant effort towards getting towards that.
Great question. Thanks, Jamie. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Naima. I am very appreciative of the time today. I think this is going to be helpful to a lot of our members who are trying to navigate their personal career journeys, but also maybe feel like they're in a box because of their title or because of their current job responsibilities, but helping them to see beyond that and the possibilities to kind of be a pathfinder, to create their own paths, which I think is more important today. Always, but especially today with how rapidly the world is changing. Like your job title and the responsibilities that you have when you sign up for a job, they're going to change. You can't be tied to that. You have to be not just waiting for it to change, but ready to make the changes yourself to lead that change. So I really appreciate the conversation and think this has been so helpful. There,
We
yes,
have a
wonderful.
question.
Hi, this is
Yes.
Heather. I had a question on your Unveiled cohort experience. So if either or both of you want to sort of kind of just mention that would be great.
Great question. I'm House. I'll let you start with that one.
I couldn't really hear for some reason. Sorry.
So her question is around what was your unveiled cohort experience? Was that correct, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that one was part of the genesis, giving me kind of the like to think about just around the fact of relationships, being strategic around what you do, the whole notion around understanding the value of sponsorship and that whole piece. I think that was really critical, and just mapping out what you think from a career journey perspective. And then I like the fact that our cohort was quite small. So then you had that intimacy as well, and having a mentor, all of those things. And it was very focused. You had your, it was really for you to progress. So, and finally was just, again, I was just sharing that because this was when I was doing this program was when I made the decision to apply to the Harvard program. I said, why not me? And I think part of just the work that we were doing also lent itself to me deciding to apply for the program. So it's a wonderful program. So I just can't say more than enough about it.
And I'll piggyback on that. I think for me, and I'm probably as all the ladies here, I've been through a lot of different leadership programs, women-based programs, science-based programs, you name it, I have been a part of it. But this one in particularly, what I loved, and I think Naima hit it, the small group was fantastic. Number two, the vulnerability of the individuals and the investment in us. It really was life changing for me. I was going through or in thinking of doing a pivot in my career, and that's scary. It was really, really scary. And I felt like I had and still have great individuals that I can call and be truly vulnerable and that works with me through that process. And it's one thing to have that internally in your career, but it's, as I think Naima said, really great. You are bigger than your career and your community is really important. So this is a very intentional community that if you lean into it can truly be life-changing if you let it.
Thank you both. I'd like to add my experience as well. And I agree with what both of you said in terms of the size. That was just the first time that I ever was in a program of that size and that level of intimacy. And it was really good. Not too much. It was just right in terms of the scheduling and the ability for everyone to have the opportunity to speak up and share when they were comfortable to do that. For me, it was a very chaotic time in my life, which I hadn't planned for. But, and it was almost like I feel like Sahana and the whole team has almost been like a bit of a life raft for me during that time. And even after, more chaos ensued. But I always felt like the relationships that I built with Unveiled were helpful to me to keep me focused on the possibilities, even though during that year of the program, I didn't feel like I had the space to grow. I was like, I'm just holding on for life right now. But it was really good to hear from the other ladies about what they were working on. And it kept me feeling encouraged and inspired. And then later, once things calmed down a bit, I was able to actually use the skills and implement them. And it helped me to navigate some very difficult challenges, including a reduction in workforce that I went through. And, it's difficult to talk about, but it's very common these days. And the lessons that I learned and the relationships that I continue to build with the sponsorship type relationships and Unveiled were key to me getting my next move and um, thinking about that even now, what's next, and more so now, how can I be a sponsor myself? I was thinking about that a lot during the program too, because I had been myself in that whole mentorship phase. Like I can mentor a lot of people. I want to mentor to give back, but now it's like, how can I go beyond mentoring to sponsor? And in your daily role, you can do that with your team who's directly reporting to you, but also trying to look beyond that. So it was the first time that I saw myself as a sponsor. Like I hadn't seen myself in that role before. So I think like you, I can't say enough about it. It's worth the investment, even if things aren't perfectly lined up. If you can't use them immediately, there'll come a time when you can use them.
Yeah. And Jamie, to piggyback on what you said, this was the first time where when the cohort ended, I was like, oh, now I got a lot of work to do because we're here now, we're volunteering. This message, there's an undercurrent in this message that I don't think is being talked about very much. And if there's a way to amplify, like there's tons of ways to volunteer and engage. And so, yes, there's the cohort, it's fantastic, but there is still a lot of work and ways to volunteer and be involved with Unveiled. So that's my last little piggyback I'll put on there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing because I feel like Sahana did a lot of great work to get this movement going. And there's all the people who, like you said, invest into us throughout the program. And then us who have been through the program now coming back and giving back. I think it's still it's 3 years. That's what that upcoming in-person event is going to be to celebrate where we are. But I'm kind of excited to think about 3 years from now and where this movement will be and how many people it will have impacted to help them in a positive way, like personally and professionally. So this conversation for me with the two of you is just a beautiful example of that, right? And to think, I don't want to go on too much, but one of the things that Sahana and I talked about is that initially it was a big focus on women in certain industries. So it's kind of siloed. But what Unveiled has done, in my opinion, is like brought us together across, like instead of focusing on what's different or what our niche is, it's what do we have in common? And to see like both of you representing women in a technology, pharmaceutical, kind of that medical background, all coming together in a very unique way that maybe 20 years ago we wouldn't have even thought about the roles that you have. But to see that here through Unveiled, I mean, that's exciting. And it shows that this program works regardless of your industry, and the networking and the community and the ability to support each other works. So I'm just so thankful to be a part of it and to be able to hear you both today. It's one of my most proudest fireside chats to be involved with. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for the time. And I know we're really, really close to time here. If there are any other questions and we do sign off, please feel free. Put it in the LinkedIn chat. We will get back to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandy. Thanks, Naima. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.